All right, welcome everyone to the Thursday, April 25th, Peninsula Clean Energy Board of Directors meeting. I am going to really quickly have a call to order and roll call. Nellie, please. Madam Clerk.
That's new.
That's it. What are you? What is your technical?
She has lots of titles.
Just three.
Manager, office manager,
Manager,
board
communication room.
grand wizard.
Tonight I'm just the board clerk.
Okay.
San Mateo County.
Here.
Oh, thank you. San Mateo County. Atherton. Oh, I see him online. Atherton. I'll come back to him. Belmont.
Present.
Thank you. Brisbane.
Colleen Mack.
Thank you. Burlingame.
Donna Colson.
Colma. Daly City. East Palo Alto. Foster City.
Indeed, present.
Bay. Hillsborough. Los Banos. Let me just check and see if he's on the side. Yes. Menlo Park. Millbrae.
Ann Schneider substituting for Anders Fung. Do I need a 2448 acknowledgement?
Ann Schneider is participating under AB 2449 under just cause exemption. And are there any other adults in the room with you?
No.
Okay, thank you. Los Banos.
Here.
Pacifica.
Happy Jazz Big Stick.
Portola Valley.
Jeff House.
Redwood City. San Bruno.
Marty Medina.
San Carlos. San Mateo.
Adam Lorraine.
South San Francisco. Woodside.
That's it.
And circling back, Atherton.
Rick DeGolia.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Fantastic. All right, we do have one. Do we need to approve the teleconference participation? I believe the board does have to approve that.
No,
No?
because this is a just cause exemption,
Okay,
a vote is not required.
that's interesting. Okay. We will move on to public comment. Please note that Peninsula Clean Energy Board of Directors meetings are a limited public forum and all public comment must relate to something that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. If comments do not relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, we will stop the comment and move on to the next speaker. General Counsel will assist us in identifying comments that are not related to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make a comment on an item not currently on the agenda?
Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment? If you please raise your hand in the Zoom application.
Okay, and Nellie, no one's behind me, right?
Public comment and
Okay, then we will move on to closed session. We have a conference with legal counsel, and we're going to move into closed session just for a brief time, and then we will move back into open session. So Nellie, I'm going to leave it to you on how the administration of this is going to work.
indeed. Oops. Director Yanez, Director DeGolia, and Director Schneider, if you will please look for an email from me. It will have the link to the closed session Zoom meeting so that you may join in on the closed session. So you'll leave this meeting, join the closed session, and then rejoin this meeting afterwards. Thank you. Rick, did you hear my instructions? You want to leave this meeting
Yeah,
and join the meeting that
But
I
I
just
haven't-
emailed you. There's a link
what email address did you send it to?
to both of yours.
Okay. Okay, let's see. I see it.
Yes, if you'll join that, then you will join the closed session. You can rejoin this link after the closed session.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
May we proceed? Okay, so welcome back to everyone. First thing we have is an action to set the agenda and to approve the consent item.
I'm gonna go ahead and just report out.
Oh, go ahead.
Reporting out by saying that there's no action to report.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. So now we'll move to an action to set the agenda and to approve consent items on the agenda. Thank you, Director Big Stick. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Director Lorraine. Maybe we have a roll call vote, please.
San Mateo County? San Mateo County? Aye. Atherton?
Yes.
Paul, if you could, just stay muted for a bit. There's feedback when you come in. Thank you so much. Belmont?
Aye.
Yeah. Brisbane?
Yeah.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Colma? Daly City? East Palo Alto? Foster City?
Yes.
Half Moon Bay?
Yeah.
Hillsborough?
Yes.
Los Banos?
Yes.
Thank you. Menlo Park?
Yes.
Millbrae?
Ann Schneider, alternate for Millbrae, yes.
Thank you. Pacifica?
Yes.
Portola Valley?
Yes.
Redwood City?
Yes.
San Bruno?
Yes.
San Carlos? San Mateo?
Yes.
South San Francisco?
Yes.
Woodside?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 8, chair report. So the only report I have is that a number of us were able to go to the CalCCA conference where Sean made an amazing presentation and we were very well represented as a CCA. And we received a big award. And so thanks to our staff, maybe you can tell us in your report, you can tell a little bit about that. But all in all, I just want to thank everyone who went. It was really nice to have such a robust turnout for our organization at a local venue. So that's really it. So moving on to CEO report.
Okay. All right, well, just piggybacking, I do want to thank everybody on our board and all of our staff for those of you who could attend the conference in San Jose. It was, it hit a new high mark of 750 participants, which is remarkable considering that the first one a little, 10 plus years ago was 50. So it's just an amazing sort of expansion of our industry. As Donna noted, PCE was the recipient of a Community Impact Award. You might recall last year, we won in the category of equity. And this year we won in the category of decarbonization for our EV Ready program, which has really taken off and is making a huge difference in our community. So I do want to call out Philip Kobernick. Are you in the room, Philip? Philip, you guys stand up and all the programs too. Really great work and more to go. And I also want to thank so many of you around this table who participated in the luncheon on Thursday to meet your counterparties. That's always a popular event. So with that, there's our picture. All right, couple programs updates for you guys to know. You remember the member agency energy grants that your board approved in January. We've received 2 applications, one from the city of Los Banos for heat pump HVAC system, and from the city of San Bruno for LED street lighting for solar storage backup. So those applications have been received, and the process here is that 50% of the funds will be dispersed at the outset, and the remaining 50 is paid once the project is complete. So for other cities that are interested, it's money that is sitting there for your use. Feel free to get your applications in. On the government PV side, it's been an interesting month there as well. Unfortunately, Intermountain Electric, which is the original contractor that we hired for phase 1, is experiencing significant financial difficulties. And as a result, we jointly agreed to terminate that contract and to move the remaining projects under that agreement to the new contract that your board adopted or approved in January with Macmillan. So all of the key terms and the contract amount remains the same. We have executed that contract with Macmillan to pick up the residual phase one. We will prioritize those projects to finish that out and then move into phase two. As a reminder, they are also a union firm that was selected through a competitive process last fall. So another example, and again, tip of the hat to Raphael, Peter, and team who identified this problem before it became a much bigger problem. And we moved quickly to deal with it and to resolve the issue without further delay. So we will be back in town in San Bruno at your aquatic center very soon.
Fantastic.
All right, any questions about that before we move on? Okay. Legislative, I'm gonna hand that over to Shalini, who will update us.
Sure, we've been keeping Mark very busy. So the California Department of Housing and Community Development had released a proposed code a couple months ago that would eliminate the opportunity for level 1 EV charging at multifamily units. Oddly, that's the program we just won an award for last week. And so you may recall that PCE did a study that indicated level 1 EV charging can meet most of the needs of consumers and is much more affordable, and it spurs electrification in lower income households. So PCE reached out to HCD, the governor's office, other CCAs, and coordinated a Cal CCA advocacy letter on this matter to HCD. And we want to extend our sincere thanks to legislators who signed a legislative letter, including our champion, Senator Becker, Senator Stern, Assemblymember Berman, and Assemblymember Ward. And recently, the advisory committee to HCD recommended PCE's suggested edits to the proposed code that would maintain the ability to install low-cost level 1 chargers. And we're waiting to see what HCD ultimately decides. But I think this was a really great example of leadership and expertise from PCE in impacting statewide policy in a very, very short turnaround. So we're excited, hopefully we're excited to see where that goes. I'll just briefly run through the bills that we've supported recently. SB 1095, it updates outdated health and safety codes that discourage electrification, particularly among manufactured and mobile homes. And so it aims to streamline HOA approval for electrification measures because people aren't going to wait, 3 to 5 months for their HOA to approve something if they were out of hot water, right? SB 1130, Senator Bradford's bill, it expands access to low-income discounts. So that was something we supported. Obviously, affordability is a big priority throughout the state when it comes to energy bills right now. And lastly, AB 2815, Assemblymember Petrie Norris, it requires the CEC to provide funding through its existing Clean Transportation Program for the repair or replacement of non-operational public EV chargers. We know this has been an issue throughout the state. Sammy Roth in the LA Times did a pretty good series on it. So the funding is set aside to fix outdated EV chargers. And so we're obviously supportive of that as well. Lastly, I will note that as of today, we have in our federal earmark funding request to all of our representatives. That includes Representative Eshoo, Mullen, Duarte for Los Banos, as well as Senators Butler and Padilla. And so we'll wait about 1 month and we'll see if any of them have granted it. That was a $2 million request to help fund our turnkey electrification program.
Oh.
And that's what Sean and Mark went to DC to lobby for in March. Any questions?
No, any member, go ahead. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Are we looking at Josh Becker's, I believe it's SB 1374. It's something to do with schools retaining NEM incentives.
Yes, we're looking at that. We're still, as I'm sure you know, the subsidies and rates between the income graduated fixed charge and the solar billing tariff. There's a lot of flux in them right now. So we're monitoring and we're kind of waiting to see where things fall out. This California Public Utilities Commission is set to take a vote on the income graduated fixed charge soon. And we expect that some changes will be made to potential legislation after that. Thank you.
Right, there are no more questions. I would like, are we, okay, you're still going?
Yep, really quick, I'll be done
No, I
quickly.
was gonna open it up for, when you're done. we'll
I'll
open
be
it up for
done, just a
public
second. we're gonna be out and about. We, again, tip of the hat to our CAC and our staff members who through this Earth Week have been working overtime, weekends, evenings at various events. We have another slate of them coming up this weekend. I'll be with you guys in San Bruno, so that'll be fun, and a number of us all the way through May. And then, of course, there are other activities that occur over the summer and the fall, but this is really our busy time this year. So thanks to our staff for working weekends and putting in the extra hours. I'm also continuing on with the city council briefings. This past week, I was in San Bruno, which was great. And then coming up, Menlo Park, Atherton, and San Carlos, and then onward. So my hope is to make it to all of our member cities before the end of the year is my goal. Staffing, we welcomed Kelly Quintal, our new risk manager, whose first day was last week, and she joined us at the Cal CCA conference. And we have Melanie Jasper in programs joining us in May. There are a couple of positions that are open, and here are the upcoming meetings, and that concludes my report.
Fantastic. Anyone have any questions?
I do see a comment from.
Okay, Rick
Schneider.
or Ann, sorry, didn't see who that was.
Thank you, Chair. I was reading the newsletter and saw the Earth Day events. Ours is Saturday, so it's too late. But I'm wondering if Peninsula Clean Energy could attend our first bike rodeo since COVID on May 11th. I've talked to Anders about that. We think we sent a request through, but I'm your contact if you need it. The bike rodeo is my project.
Great.
All right, we'll follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Schneider. Does any member of the public have a comment on any of these reports, both the chair and the CEO? Rick, or, Ann, your hand is still up, I think. Okay, we'll take that down. Okay, perfect. No other members of the public? All right, we'll go ahead and close that item and move on to the CAC report. Cheryl.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Chair Colson and members of the board. When the CAC met April 11th, I shared that member Margaret Lee of South San Francisco had resigned. The CAC now includes 12 members of 15 potential members, so we're eager to add new members soon. Programs Manager Blake Hershaft explained and compared two approaches to developing REACH codes, the energy performance approach and air quality approach. He also reviewed model codes and participated in our CAC REACH code discussion. We heard summaries of accomplishments from the chairs of our 5 working groups, including building electrification, managed EV charging, solar plus storage, education initiatives, and diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. Kirsten Andrew Schwinn, Associate Director of Community Relations and Climate Equity, told us about new working group ideas generated by PCE staff. She asked members to share their ideas too, that included 1, a group to research how AI may benefit PCE, 2, continuing the group researching distributed energy resources, including wind power, and 3, continuing the group focused on building electrification. Kirsten updated us on the process to appoint new CAC members, and she recruited more of us to support PCE's extensive Earth Day and spring outreach. This completes my report. May I answer any questions?
All right, do any members of the public have questions? All right, seeing none, I want to thank you on behalf of the Board of Directors, Cheryl, for your thorough and comprehensive report. And also, please extend our deep gratitude to the members of the CAC for their willingness to go out to all these community events and support PCE. That is an incredible part of their role, and we sincerely appreciate it.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 11, approval of appointments to the Executive Committee and the Audit and Finance Committee. This is me and
You got it.
Vice Chair Medina. So over the past 2 or 3 weeks, we've been reaching out to various people who have expressed interest in helping us on certain elements of the executive committee and the finance committee. We also recognize that many of you serve on other ad hoc committees, such as the legislative committee, the program committee, there was strategic planning, DEI. So, you know, those are sort of ad hoc, one-off appointments that we sort of operate on, but the sort of two formalized committees that exist within the genesis of the organization are the executive committee and the audit and finance committee. So you can see here, we have many returning members, but we want to add on 2 new members to executive committee. That would be Supervisor Ray Mueller, who has graciously agreed to assist us, and Council Member Director Betsy Nash. And we really, where's Betsy? Where's she hiding? There she is. Really appreciate her willingness to step up. On the audit and finance committee, we will be chaired by Carlos Romero, has agreed to continue on that committee and to chair it. And we are adding on Director Yanez and Director McCune, who we are most appreciative of their time because, and we worked out the conversation we had this morning, because they both bring very unique perspectives, I think, to the finance committee. Tom with his extensive background in energy, and Paul with his very unique community that is, you know, an important collaborator in all the work we do. So having these 4 new people join us not only diversifies our committees, but also starts to set us up for future leadership and succession planning within the board. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right, do we have any members of the public with questions or comments? All right, before we take a vote, I will also just open up that anyone who's interested in serving on some sort of an ad hoc committee, has time or things like that, if you just email me or Marty or both of us, we're gonna put you on a list. And we're gonna hang on to you and we're gonna know your willingness to help us down the road, because there will be a few of those things coming up. So with that, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. If we can get a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Okay, I'll take Director Alves as a motion, and we'll take Director Hindi as a second. We'll spread the wealth here. May I have a roll call vote, please? It's okay.
San Mateo County,
Thank you. Yes.
San Mateo County. Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Aye.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma, Daly City, East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Abstain.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you, and the motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. We look forward to working together with everyone. Item number 12 is approval of our updated Peninsula Clean Energy Strategic Plan organizational priority. Number 1, to deliver 100% renewable energy on an annual basis by 2030 through strategic and cost-effective procurement of resources that maximize PCE energy 24/7. I'm going to turn this over to Roy and Mehdi, who will give us a presentation, and this is an action item, please.
Presenting this item. These are planning analytics.
Can everyone hear Roy?
Maybe pull that mic up. It's a tab. Yeah.
Red light or green light?
Oh, no, okay, now it's
There we
working.
go.
Sorry. Let me restart.
Rapid response.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Roy Chu, Director of Power Resources. And I'll be co-presenting this item with my colleague, Mehdi Shariari, Planning and Analytics Manager. And this item before you tonight is a continuation of the discussion we had last month regarding PCE's renewable goals. Last month, we addressed the 100% annual goal, and today we're going to take a closer look at our 24/7 hourly goal. So the recommendation today will be to update PCE's strategic plan organizational priority number 1 to deliver 100% renewable energy on an annual basis by 2030 through strategic and cost-effective procurement of resources that maximize PCE's 24/7 hourly matching of renewable energy and load. We'll get into the details later in the deck, but I want to point out two things in this statement. First of all, as you'll notice, this statement is not too different from the approved statement from last month. One change is adding the word cost-effective. We heard from the board that keeping the rates low and affordable is very important to our customers. So we want to do this in a cost-effective way. And the other noticeable area in this statement is there is no set day to meet the hourly goal, nor a specific percentage time coincident in this statement, which provides us with a flexibility in procurement. I mean, we're still committed to maximize hourly matching, which in itself is a demonstration of our thought leadership in the industry, but we're going to do that in a flexible way and to balance cost and risk. Okay, just quickly on the agenda, I'll go over some backgrounds and assumptions analysis, and Maddie will go over the results of the analysis and present some options. So in June 2023, the board revised the priority statement to delivering 100% renewable energy annually by 2025 and on a 99% time coincident basis by 2027. In November 2023, staff discussed the status and challenges of meeting the 24/7 goal with the procurement subcommittee and the board. That was during the board retreat. And in March 2024, which is last month, the board adopted the priority statement, deliver 100% renewable energy annually by 2030 through strategic procurement of resources to maximize the 24/7 hourly renewable matching. So since last November, staff has, in November, staff was asked to come back to the board and bring back a recommendation on how to revise the 24/7 goal. And we've completed more steps in our analysis. One is refreshing the model with new inputs based on market changes. And the new assumptions include new price forecasts, new resource availability and pricing, and the ability to resell our excess products. We also explored methods to maintain time coincident target after the initial year, because we've been talking about 2025 and 2027 in a single year to meeting the goal, but we really didn't look at how or address how to maintain it and the cost and risk of maintaining that goal going forward. So we took a look at that. And then we developed more flexible structures in trying to meet this goal while maintaining a low cost and risk. Just to recap the current challenges in the market, and this is has been presented to the board before. Projects are being delayed. Desirable projects, those projects that with desirable profiles to help us with meeting 24/7 is not going to come online anytime soon in the near term. And everything in the energy market right now is super expensive. That's energy, renewable energy credits, and resource adequacy. And if you recall from last month's deck, the price on all these products have skyrocketed. And also the challenge on hourly renewable matching is that there is no industry standard of doing that. The current accounting system is an annual accounting system. So we're really ahead of the curve in trying to address this issue. And lastly, the strategy we are deploying on 24/7 right now is done on a planning basis. But as we know, renewable generation fluctuates depending on on whether the sun is shining, the wind is blowing. So it is not a perfect forecast that we can meet either 99%, 95%, 90% time coincident. It really depends on what the grid needs. So we can operate a battery to meet PCE's void in meeting the hourly goal, or we can try to use the batteries and our resources to meet the grid need and help reduce grid emissions. So there's some conflict in that operation versus planning. So these are the challenges. So this slide summarizes where we are right now based on our current existing portfolio. I'm gonna look at this side here. So in 2027, with our existing resource portfolio, we'll be reaching 86% annual renewable and 77% hourly matching. That's with no additional resource added or contracted. And as you can see, by 2030, with no additional resources, we'll be at 69% annual, 65% hourly matching. This is not to say we're not gonna contract more resources. We do expect to contract more resources that'll come online in 29, 30, that'll increase this bar. So it's not going to, you know, decrease. It's gonna increase or maintain pretty high level time constant percentage. Just we need to add more resources to our portfolio. And again, I want to emphasize that 77% hourly matching is a very high number in terms of meeting this goal. I'm not sure if other LSCs have looked at this. We're probably one of the first to look at hourly matching, and that's what we've been procuring towards this goal. And this is an accomplishment in itself, 77% hourly matching by 2027. So compared to the state goal, SB 100, which mandates 60% RPS by 2030, 100% carbon free by 2045, we're meeting 60%, the annual target, 5 years ahead of schedule in 2025. And SB 100 is really not an hourly matching goal, but essentially it will eliminate most, if not all, of the gas generation, fossil fuel generation on the grid. We will definitely need to procure more resources to meet that goal. And our 24/7 strategy will help accelerate meeting that goal for PCE's share contribution for the grid. Getting to the analysis, there are really, I'm just gonna go click through all of them. There are 3 variables that we look at. One is the availability of resources in the 2030, 2031 timeframe, and market price scenarios based on a low price forecast in the market and a high price forecast in the market. And the third variable is our ability to resell any excess or over procurement that's been generated because we're pursuing the 24/7 goal. And our target analysis year has been shifted from 2027 previously to now 2030 because we shifted the annual goal. So this is a very important slide that shows, based on our engagement with the market or the developers, what we see as available in the market in the near term, which is 27, 28, and further out in the decade, 29 through 31. Under the realistic case, meaning what we can realistically expect to contract for these resources to come online, the only resource that has limited availability is solar plus storage. And contracting solar plus storage will most likely produce a lot of over procurement, as we'll get into. Under the optimistic case, in the near term, we really don't see a lot of wind and shaped resource of geothermal. But in 2029, 2031, we expect to see new wind and new geothermal resources to come online. So we gotta give grid a little bit of time to catch up with our aggressive goal. That's really the message here. Even if we want to spend a lot of money trying to meet this hourly goal in 2027, it is probably not feasible because there's just really not a lot of resources out there for us to contract.
Roy, did you want to ask Colin?
Oh, yes.
May I just clarify, under the 2029 to 31 scenario?
Yes.
With realistic in the new solar plus storage, is this purely large-scale contracts, or are there any assumptions built in about Gov PV and programs, PCE programs for microgrids?
This is purely supply side, large scale projects, and the PV projects are behind the meter. So it serves a different purpose. It will help to reduce load. This is on the other side, when we, yeah, on the generation side. Box to the right, so what's not in that table is standalone storage. PCE has procured, and the board has approved quite a few contracts on standalone storage. They are available in the near term, and the Prologis contract that we approved a couple months ago has an expected COD in 2026. And we're expecting to bring to the board 1 or 2 more standalone storage contracts in the near term for approval. So these are available, but standalone storage contracts do not generate renewable energy by themselves. We need to have more renewable generation. So that's the challenge with contracting only standalone storage. So the next variable is market price. So we're trying to predict the future here. We don't know what the price will be for RECs, RA, and energy in the future. So we have to guess. And one assumption is the price is going to stay very high. The other assumption is that the price might start dropping for all these products. And this graph on the bottom shows the gap on the assumptions. The top one is the higher price. The lower one is lower price market forecast for those years on energy. So why is it important? Under the low market scenario, we expect to not be able to sell a lot of our excess, because when the price is low, it really implies that there's no demand for the product. And if we're unable to sell our excess, then we can't get the cost recovery we need to keep the cost down. So the low market scenario is a challenge. So if the market price tanks, then it will be harder for us to meet the goal, and it creates more risk to us. And also when the market is low, PCIA is high, which is also a challenge. And the third variable related is our ability or assumption on how we're going to resell our excess power or products. We can sell it bundled, like we buy energy products through PPAs, we buy bundled, but those probably will come, we could probably sell them at a lower rate than if we take a more aggressive approach and sell everything short term separately. If the market's good, we can probably generate more revenue in that way. So we have to make an assumption on how we're going to sell these excess. And we're going to show you the medium approach. So the analysis is based on the medium approach, which is 60% bundled, 40% unbundled, but we have sensitivity analysis done on the conservative and aggressive. So sort of the conclusion before we even get to the results is achieving high time coincident goal will result in over procurement and the need to resell any excess products. But there is no guarantee that we can sell all these excess in the market to recover our costs. Therefore, we need to really reduce the uncertainty of over procurement. And there are 2 ways to do that. One is to find the best fit resources that can minimize over procurement, or we have flexibility in our goal to not force ourselves to procure undesirable resources. So with that, I'll turn it over to Maddie to talk about the study results.
Thanks for that. Hello, from Mehdi Shariari, Manager of Planning and Analytics. So in this section, I'm going to review some of the results of the analysis we have done for the 24/7 goal. The first slide I'm going to look at is how much additional capacity we would need by 2030 to achieve different goals. We looked at three different renewable goals: annual 100%, hourly 90%, and hourly 95%. And we also looked at 2 different cases, as Roy mentioned, realistic case and the optimistic case. Under the realistic case, we need significant amount of additional capacity. So these are capacities in addition to what we have already procured for 2030 in our portfolio. So you can see under the realistic case, even achieving the annual 100% requires an addition of 1,100 megawatt capacity. Under the optimistic case, however, since the better fit resources such as wind, geothermal, and shaped renewables are going to be available, we need much smaller capacity. So for example, in the annual 100%, we need less than 400 megawatt. The other trend that you can see here is when you move from the annual 100% to the higher hourly targets. For example, under the optimistic case, moving from annual 100% to hourly 95% is only like 50 megawatt additional capacity. And that's for two reasons. First, those better fit resources such as wind and geothermal are available. And under the optimistic case, even the annual 100% achieves a higher hourly target of 85 to 90%. So we can easily move from annual 100% to hourly 95 or even higher hourly matching targets. Under the realistic case, however, those resources are not available, and also the annual 100% achieves a lower hourly matching of 80 to 85%. So going from annual 100% to an hourly 95% requires an additional 1,000 megawatt. So in total, we would need more than 2,000 megawatt additional capacity to achieve hourly 95% under the realistic case. And this is only to get or achieve these goals by 2030. We have to also maintain these goals over time. And to maintain these goals, we have to continue to procure because there will be organic increase in load. We have like short and midterm contracts that will expire, new customers joining PCE as well. So in this graph, we are focusing only on the hourly 90% scenario. For 2030, the numbers are consistent with the previous graph. So you can see, for example, under the realistic case, we need 1,400 megawatt to get to hourly 90%. But to maintain this goal in 2031, because there are like contract expiring, load increasing, we need to add another 600 megawatt to our portfolio. Under the optimistic case, however, that additional capacity that we need in 2031 is much smaller, around 200 megawatt from 2030 to 2031. So basically, you can see this is not just a challenge to get to an hourly goal, but also maintaining that goal over time is going to be challenging.
Yes,
Just
Jeff?
quickly, just for perspective, our peak load over the year is approximately 680 megawatts.
Like even during the heat wave currently it's like 750.
Okay, so
So this
700.
is like significantly.
So this is
higher.
talking about 3 times, or to meet it with solar and storage, we have to buy 3 times our peak load, and this is why it gets so expensive.
Actually, like this slide captures like the issues in terms of like energy. The previous slide shows just the capacity. This one shows in terms of energy. And one of the variables we usually use the over procurement or excess supply relative to load on annual basis. So on this graph, we are showing in terms of when we compare the supply of the renewable energy versus load, how much excess we might have. So you can see under the annual 100%, there is no excess because we are matching load and supply of renewable energy. But when you move to the hourly goals, there is like an excess supply of renewable energy, especially under the realistic case. If you want to achieve, for example, hourly 95%, there is around or even more than 30% excess supply relative to our load. And this excess supply means further exposure to the market prices could increase cost and risk to PCE. You can see under the optimistic case that exposure becomes much smaller. So what does this mean in terms of cost to PCE? So we looked at cost relative to the high market and low market, as Roy mentioned, also under the different renewable scenarios. First, let's focus on the graph on the right for the optimistic case. Because these numbers are confidential, we are not showing the total cost of energy, but just for reference, the difference between each two like gray horizontal lines is $50 million. When you look at the optimistic case, The gray lines are not as clear. It's clear on the TV on that side, but not on this one here. Yeah. So basically on the graph on the right, on the optimistic case, you can see all the lines are very close to each other. So even moving from the annual 100% shown in orange to the green lines for the hourly 95%, there is around like $25 million change in cost. And you can also see the difference between the dashed and solid lines, which are the high and low market, is not significant. So our portfolio is not super sensitive to the changes in the market. But when you look at the graph on the left for the realistic case, now first you see all the lines are scaled upward. So now they're all like, our cost on average is going to be higher for the realistic case. And also when you compare the annual 100% versus the hourly 95, you can see there's a significant cost increase for the hourly 95%. And when you also compare the solid and the dashed lines, there's like a significant uncertainty in cost based on the market conditions. For example, whether we are facing high market or low market, our cost could be significantly different. This means like in general, under the realistic case, there is like more cost and risk to PCE. So just to summarize the results, as Roy showed, we can achieve around 77% time coincident by 2027 with the currently procured contracts. Meeting any higher time coincident in 2027 through 2029 would be infeasible given the current market conditions and also lack of desirable resources. We can achieve somewhere between 80 to 85% time coincident by 2030 by getting to annual 100% renewable. And that's by signing more contracts that would come online by 2030. Meeting time coincident targets above 80 to 85% could be challenging and could increase our costs and risk significantly. And also when we look at these like different scenarios, let's say between 85 and 95%, given how small our load is relative to CAISO, the differences in terms of emission and grid impacts would be small, but the cost impact to PC could be relatively large. With all that said, if we can find those like better fit resources, such as wind and geothermal, we can still achieve those like higher hourly targets, such as 95% or even higher in a cost-effective way. So we are not saying we cannot get to a higher hourly targets, but achieving those are dependent on finding those better fit resources so we can be able to manage our cost and risk, basically. Okay, so this was a summary of like the results that we need. And then, so now we are going to look at a few options that we have. The first option is a simple one, just adjust our time coincident percentage and target here. So like a lower time coincident and shift the target here to 2030 or beyond. The second one is just use an average 24/7 target starting in 2030, which means we set a time coincident target average over a 5-year measurement period. This means that our time coincident percentage would change during this measurement period, but the average should match our target. And the last option is to maintain 100% annual goal with a flexible hourly goal. And in the next slide, I'm going to go over some of the benefits and how these scenarios compare against each other. So first consideration is whether this is consistent with our current strategy or message. That's like option one. So it's achieve a specific time coincident target by a specific year. So it's consistent with that. Option 2 and option 3 are like different strategy. Second and third considerations are cost containment and risk reduction, and also whether we have flexibility to address load increase and contract expiration. Option 1 doesn't have those benefits. Option 2 has those benefits to some degree, but option 3 has the most flexibility And it also provides us with the biggest option to decrease costs and risk. And the fourth and fifth benefit are whether we can minimize over procurement and maximize operational flexibility. And none of the first two options have those benefits, but option 3 provides that with those benefits. And the last one is whether it is easy to communicate that to the public. Option 1 is easy. Option 3 is also relatively easy. We just want to make sure people understand we still have an hourly goal, but there is no like fixed number attached to that. And option 2 would be the most challenging to communicate to public, given like we are using like an average target. And with all the inputs that we have received with discussion with the procurement subcommittee, we recommend pursuing option 3, which is maintaining 100% renewable goal on an annual basis, but with a flexible hourly target. And this is just like a recap of our recommendation to deliver 100% renewable energy on an annual basis by 2030 through strategic and cost-effective procurement of resources that maximize PCE's 24/7 hourly matching of renewable energy and load.
All right,
Thank
is that
you.
it? Thank you. Okay. Director Mackin.
I would almost like added to that statement, what I thought was really significant was the summarization near the end that said, keeping cost of energy affordable. That's as important as that statement. I almost would like to see that added because it tells the whole story.
So that's what we tried to do with the phrase cost effective. But we can go back to the drawing board if you want us to.
I just think it's because ultimately, what good are we if we can't keep the cost of energy affordable?
Right. I see Director Schneider.
Thank you, Chair, and forgive this question since I don't regularly attend. I understand that this is all on the procurement side, and I know that PCE has done a lot on trying to shift away from gas, but have we considered, especially in heat waves, alternates to reducing energy consumption during those times? And I specifically, when Jan was still the director, talked to her about a cool roof program, specifically for those of us in North County where we don't have air conditioning, but also to reduce rooftops to cool rooftops with air conditioning. I understand that's not the topic of this agenda item, but if someone can get back to me, hopefully we can reduce load even as we're adding population and adding facilities, energy consuming facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Schneider. We'll put a pin in that and staff will manage that question and we can respond directly. Yes.
Thank you.
Director Wayne.
So I'd like to ask if there might be opportunities for the board to review and revisit targets, you know, at a fixed date, maybe, you know, a year, 2 years, some years from now.
Yeah, well, we're starting our new strategic planning process. The last strategic plan was 5 years long. I think we can all agree that market conditions fluctuate on a faster time frame than 5 years. So we're going to make a more responsive strategic plan, and we're just beginning that process and selecting a vendor now. And we should have that done for adoption at the December board meeting. And your board will be involved in the development of that through consultations, focus groups, et cetera. So that's something we're thinking about.
But also specific to this, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we've talked about is coming back to you annually to provide an update on where we're at with both the annual and the 24/7 hourly matching.
That is correct. Staff will continue to analyze and update our model, and we're gonna do that regardless, just to see where we stand in terms of hourly matching and 2%.
And we'll probably try and match that up with the strategic plan so that, you know, there's some logic to when we report on all of it.
Okay, are there any more, more questions, or I'm happy to open to the public and we can have more afterwards, whatever everyone wants. More questions? Other question? So why don't I clear the public really quick? Are there any members of the public who have questions or comments on this particular agenda item? Sometimes that will facilitate our question asking, so Okay, no one? All right. So I'll go back. Are there any more questions? And if there are not questions, does anyone want, have a thought or, propose kind of a consideration around the proposal that has been made, which is to look at amending priority number 1 based on, I think, number 3, right, was the recommended. Yeah, right here. Yes, no, I'll go, let me go Leslie first, please, Director Ragsdale.
I would just say, first of all, thank you so much for both the presentation and the presentation in the packet, because it's not my forte and I was able to understand it, so that's a huge victory for you. But also along those lines, in terms of explaining it to the public, I think you're gonna get a whole bunch of people, what you said.
Yeah.
But also I wouldn't put this statement before the public, right? That's a lot. I would just say, the cost effective part, like Director Mackin would say, the cost effective and, need renewable, cost effective. Done.
Yeah. Suggestion. Do we have others? Did I see that? Yeah. No, okay. Director Lurie.
Thank you. I did just want to indicate my support for the staff recommendation here. I especially given that we're going to get an opportunity to review this on an annual basis. And I know everyone in the room remains committed to pursuing the higher minded goals that were set before, but with clear eyes and, adapting to reality. I saw a note in the admin report indicating that with this, like one concern potentially with number 3 that I think Director Ragsdale alluded to is a perception that we're backing off aggressive renewable goals. But I actually think there's an opportunity for an opposite perception of showing us that we're being prudent stewards of our ratepayers' money and trust. In pursuit of the most green for the least green. To attend, but to me, that's what this is. That's the heart of what we're approaching today. And we need, of course, to be efficient and strategic with our resources so that we can still meet industry leading goals as soon as practical for us. Leveraging all of our strengths and the hard work and investments that PCE has already built along the way, and then doing it again the following year and the year after that. So I do think long-term sustainability is a major reason for adopting this, and I'll leave it at that.
Yes, Director Ross.
Yeah, so I mean, we stated this goal, I believe, in 2018.
Yeah.
Thereabouts, and we've been pursuing it ever since. And when we sort of, and I take your point that and I feel the same sort of disappointment perhaps that we're sort of like, we at one point, I think we were talking about achieving this in 2025. And obviously that's probably not realistic. So it sort of feels frustrating, but then I step back and I remember this was very audacious. It was audacious and ambitious to begin with, but it was also an experiment. We knew we were going to learn things through this process, and we did. And the learning from this, everything that staff has done over the past 6 years has basically told us what needs to happen to make us 100% time coincident. And it's new resources, it's improvements in technology, and it's changes in policy. And we are going to have to go out and advocate for some of those changes in policy, and we're going to have to encourage developments in technology as an organization. Because of the exercise over the years, we now actually have a better sense of what it's going to take for the entire state to become 100% decarbonized. And that's an incredibly valuable thing that we've done. And I'm just, I'm actually, even though we're pulling back from the original goal, I'm actually so proud of the organization, everything we're doing to lead on this. I mean, we are leading the state and possibly the world in terms of what it takes to do this. And so, I completely agree with this I completely support this recommendation. And I actually just want to say thank you to everyone who has worked on this. And And the staff 6 years ago that first proposed this, they went further than that. I was even willing to go at that point. I was actually surprised at how aggressive it was at the times. And, but again, I'm really proud of the work we've done here. So.
All right, any more comments? The only comment I have is Director Romero called me earlier today. And although it's a non-renewable resource, he mentioned for a future conversation, the reopening of the discussion around nuclear as a potential source to help us keep costs down. As if anyone just saw PG&E's portfolio is going to be significantly, I think it was significantly nuclear when I looked at it. They're 100%, yeah, 34%. So again, I think he's coming at it not from with an opinion, but just as a edification situation. I think we have to be able to defend why we are or are not using things and how we are moving forward. So it's an opportunity down the road to maybe relook at that. That was his request. So I'm just bringing it out here. No additional comment on that.
May I ask a question about it to Roy? Let's say we looked at this when we come back. Is there a nuclear resource in the marketplace right now? Because for a while, it was not readily available. Do you know?
That's correct. Well, California has only one remaining nuclear facility. That's Diablo Canyon, and it's mostly going to PG&E. And they're no longer, my understanding is that they're no longer offering that to the CCAs through the annual allocation process.
That is for those of you who are new, that was the way we were getting it was through the PCIA. They had to offer us the opportunity to purchase. We were paying into it and they had to offer us the opportunity to actually receive a benefit, which was to get energy, and they were proposing nuclear in that mix. So it sounds like they're not doing that anymore, but at any rate, that's just a future discussion item, maybe not even so much about PCE, but just in general about how we are going to decarbonize as a state and a country and a nation and a world. So that's all I have to offer on that. It really sounds to me like Director Lorraine made a motion and Director Alice made a second. I don't know if I can confirm that or not. Is there, or if there's anyone else who would like to make a motion in a second? Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
I really felt like that's kind of where you guys were going. So we have a motion to accept the updated Peninsula Clean Energy Strategic Plan Organizational Priority 1 per staff recommendation. And I'll have Director Lorraine made that, yes?
Yes, so moved.
So moved, and
So second.
a second by Director Adams. All right, any additional questions? All right, may we have a roll call vote, please?
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Aye.
Brisbane, Burlingame,
Yes.
Homa, Daly City, East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yeah.
Los Banos,
Yes.
thank you. Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Aye.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you, and motion passes.
All right, thank you very much, Nellie. All right, moving on to item 13. This is something many of us have seen at committee level. And briefly at the board level, I believe. We're gonna ask Nick to come up, and this is the continued evaluation and preparation of a possible prepaid bond transaction. I'm sorry we had an extra 30 minutes at the beginning, so we might run a little over 8:30 tonight, but these two items should be pretty quick. So Nick, turning it over to you.
Great, thanks for the time. Before I begin, I do have a guest on the line, Michael Berwanger from one of the suggested vendors or financial advisors we're looking to hire is on the call, hopefully. He's worked on many of these transactions. I've been sort of doing my best through these process, but he is really the subject matter expert and was here to hopefully answer any questions as someone who's done these transactions many times. So we have that resource at our disposal, which is great. So I've made this very
Clicker?
sorry.
I think it might, is it up on the, I think Betty had it up there.
I apologize in advance. I've given the presentation to the executive committee and the finance committee. You know, we tweaked it a little bit, taking feedback, but I apologize in advance. It's gonna look somewhat similar. But we're here to talk about what's called a prepaid bond transaction. And it's, I've spent my life in finance, and I would say this is very complex, structured finance. It's taken me a lot to get to where I am in the knowledge journey. It's very structured. I sent the presentation out in advance of this meeting, which I don't think we normally do because I wanted people to have at least hopefully some time to look through the schematics. I'm gonna try my best to keep this at a high level. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Mike is probably even better positioned to answer any questions, but I'm gonna try my best to sort of bring it up a level and sort of what are the big picture, why we're doing this, what are the benefits, and importantly, what are the risks, and then the next steps. But a prepaid transaction is basically a long-term financial transaction that enables tax-exempt entities like PCE and other CCAs to realize pretty meaningful power procurement cost savings. And the genesis of those cost savings are driven by the difference between taxable interest rates and tax-exempt interest rates. So just to use numbers as an example, they're probably pretty close. Taxable interest rates today are, say, 5%, give or take, depends how maturity. Tax exempt rates are, say, 4%. That's a difference of 1%, 100 basis points. That is where we are realizing the savings and allowing us to purchase our power at reduced costs. You might think that sounds like tax arbitrage, and we've always been taught that that's a no-no, illegal, which is true. But these specific transactions have actually been codified in the US tax law. There's specific language in there that says for prepaid energy transactions, this is allowed. These transactions have been around for, I think, 20 plus years, since the 1990s. I think $90 billion of transactions have been issued, mostly for natural gas procurement. That's where this started, and only recently has been applied to the renewable energy sector. In the last 2.5 years, there's been 11 CCA prepay transactions, and I'll show you on the next page all the precedents. They've generated about $60 million in annual savings when you add up all the savings across all the transactions. Those savings are driven by the market conditions, you know, that 4% to 5% that I just described. It's not always been like that, but in today's market, it's generating around 8 to 12% savings. So we've been working with our advisors or potential advisors over the last 6 months on what a transaction would look like for us. And this will be refined as we get closer and as the markets move. But assuming a transaction of 3 of our existing PPAs, and we may change those PPAs out, we may use different PPAs, but just as a straw man transaction, we believe that we could generate $3.5 million per year in savings over potentially 30 years. Again, that number could hopefully increase if we were to add additional PPAs to the initial transaction. And as I'll talk about, we do have the opportunity to do subsequent transactions, and several of our peers have done 2, and one has actually done 3 transactions. This process will take a long time. We've already started, so it's probably not 6 to 9 months from today, but in totality, it's about a 6 to 9 month process, and it does require us to engage multiple advisors, financial advisors, multiple legal advisors, as well as join what's called CCCFA, which is the issuing authority. And that's one of the things we're here to ask for approval to sign those contracts and eventually join CCCFA. As Sean mentioned, we've had this presentation several times, or versions of it. This started, I think, way back in June 2023, before my time, where there was a presentation to the Audit and Finance Committee. We then provided a version of this presentation again in February of this year, and then most recently presented to the Executive Committee. So I believe, I don't know, about half of you have heard this before, hopefully somewhat up to speed. This page, sorry the numbers are a little small, but this lists all of the California CCA transactions. They add that there are 11 of them in total, 6 different CCAs. You can see the dates and the different CCAs. almost $10 billion of bonds that have been issued. That number doesn't really matter much to us in the room. The important number is the 59.6, the $60 million of savings if you added up across all of these transactions. We've also heard, or we actually know, that San Jose Clean Energy is moving forward with the transaction. They've engaged advisors, and they're a couple months ahead of us. We've also heard, quote, rumors that CPA is looking to do their third transaction and have launched an RFP. And we've also heard that San Diego Community Power is considering their initial transaction. So a lot of activity. If we do move forward, we'll be sure to sort of time our transactions such that we're not all coming to the market at the same time. I think it should be fine. And we've been told by our advisors there's more than enough demand, but I think the punchline here is obviously a lot of company here and a lot of people have treaded this path before us. That's the right thing to say, why not? And please jump in with any questions. I forget what goes without saying. Yes.
I did have one question. At the end of the admin report, there was a mention of it being non-recourse.
Yes.
And I was just curious what that meant, how it pertained.
What that means essentially is we are not PCE responsible for repayment of the bonds or payment of interest. It is not our obligations. If anything were to go wrong, it is not recourse back to us. That's hitting the punchline.
Okay, I appreciate that.
You won't see, and I'll go into this more detail, you won't see these bonds on our balance sheet. When you open up our financial statements, there'll be no bonds. They're not actual debt issuance of us, of CCCFA. They're the ones who are responsible for the issuance and the repayment. So benefits, why would we do this? There's really only one. I've listed three, but the first one's probably 99% of the reason, and that's cost savings. Significant cost savings that we can use to lower customer rates. We all know how important that is, especially in today's day and age. I've already mentioned 8 to 12% savings. So if we put in contracts that say have an annual procurement cost of $35 million in totality, we think we can save, according to our advisors and based on the current market conditions, about $3.5 million. So 10% savings on those three transactions. As I've mentioned, the savings do fluctuate. So that's in today's market. And the size of the transaction will also dictate the savings. If we put more PPAs in, larger PPAs, the savings could be larger.
Can we get upside down based on market conditions?
You would never do a deal unless the transactions made economic sense. So we will be monitoring the market up until the point we issue. And so if we were to get sort of upside down, where maybe there was a reversion of those tax exempt rates were higher than taxable, or they were close enough that it just wasn't worth the squeeze, effort, we wouldn't move forward.
It's not variable, you're locked.
Yeah, once you do the deal, you are locked in for anywhere from 6 to 8 years. We will issue these bonds. That's sort of where the sweet spot is on the yield curve, the tax exempt yield curve. We will issue those bonds for 6 to 8 years. Those savings are pretty much locked in unless something goes wrong. What we then do is in 6 to 8 years, we will remarket those bonds and reissue them for another 6 to 8 years. And if at that point the market is turned and it's invert, like underwater, or it doesn't make sense, or the savings are only a couple 100 basis points and it's not worth our effort, we can get out of the transaction, walk away, no penalty. So savings, that's really the only reason you do this. A couple other factors that make these transactions, I think, a little more beneficial or not as painful, I guess you could say, is all the fees, which we're asking approval to enter into these contracts, are paid from the bond proceeds. So we are not out a dollar, and they're on a contingency basis. No transaction, no fees. It's how these advisors are willing to get paid. The only quote sunk costs, if for some reason we move down this path and we get to the last day and the markets have turned, as you said, and it's not advisable for us to move forward, the only sort of out-of-pocket costs are sort of our time, staff time, your time hearing this presentation. We will have to join CCCFA, and that's a one-time $50,000 fee. We'll wait as long as possible to do that so that we can minimize that risk. And we will have to pay the rating agencies. They'll want to get paid. And so that's about $200,000. Again, we'll wait as long as possible to engage them. So hopefully the risk of being out that money is minimal. And then last thing is these are non-recourse bonds and non-recourse to us.
So can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So they're non-recourse to us, but they must be recourse to CCCFA.
Correct.
So we're gonna be a member of CCCFA.
Yes.
So how are they not recourse to us?
I will ask Mike to answer that. Mike, are you on the phone? All friends?
Sure. Can you hear me, Nick?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, good evening. So they are recourse, but the recourse is to CCCFA, as Nick said. And CCCFA's source of payment of the debt would be from a termination payment, which would be payable from the counterpart. So no other, your revenues, your customers would not be a source of repayment. They would be squarely a repayment from the counterparty.
What happens if the counterparty can't pay?
Great question. This has actually occurred over time where there has been an incident where the counterparty was unable to pay. Unfortunately for bondholders in that situation, they would be out some of the funds to the extent that that counterparty could not pay that termination payment that they were obligated to make. There is no recourse to CCCFA or to you.
Okay. So clearly there's other CCAs in the CCFA. And so if anybody defaults in this, amalgamation of payments, I've been trying to figure out where the risk in this whole thing is. And I'm guessing this is now where I'm figuring out the risk is, which is it's really a risk around reputation, right? So if the bondholders are, foundations, endowments, or, high net worth individuals, whoever it may be that is owning these bonds, if there were to be a default from one of those people, and then, it got in the press, like, here's this thing going on and whatever, to me, that might be your biggest risk. So it's really not a financial risk, it's more of a potentially reputational risk.
I was thinking the same thing, but that's why when I saw the default suppliers are like Morgan Sachs.
Right.
Mike can talk about, there was, my understanding, one situation, Mike, and I don't wanna, better than I do, where Lehman Brothers, I believe, was the third party funder, and there was an issue there.
Yeah, there's a big issue there.
A little issue, yes. Unfortunately, as folks probably seem to know in the room, Lehman Brothers did a transaction with somebody in Georgia. Lehman Brothers subsequently, less than 3 months later, did go bankrupt rather abruptly. Those investors in that transaction were basically creditors in the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy estate. So they were facing Lehman Brothers, right? They did not face the Georgia entity or some of the other entities that were involved in that. And to the point of reputation, the investors in these transactions are sophisticated. That particular entity was in Georgia, and 3 months later, after this situation occurred, they actually did another transaction with another counterparty. So deal by deal, each deal is insulated from the next deal. And I think folks do understand that each deal is unto itself, if you will. But to your point, I do think, if there was something that occurred from another CCA or CCCFA or something happened there's some, potential reputational harm.
Okay,
But financially, there was no harm.
Right. And it's not that you're not going to take that. I just think it's important to understand where the risks are, whether they are financial or reputational, just so we've vetted them. Okay. Excuse me, please.
No, thank you. No, thank you. So benefit, the reason you do it is cost savings. I've tried to also understand why we wouldn't, and maybe we should add a fifth one on here of reputational risk. But these are the only the considerations or risks that I've come up with. The first one is these transactions are set to last for 30 years. The bonds are initially issued for 6 to 8 years, and then they're remarketed. There's a risk that when we remarket the bonds, the market is turned. In which case basically the transaction goes away, and that's not a technical term, but everything goes back to the way it was before. So it's not really a risk. Maybe the negative is we were expecting 30 years of savings and we only realized 7, but we're no worse off than we were before. Second risk or consideration is market timing. We will issue these bonds on a day. Hopefully we pick the right day or a good day. There's a risk in 6 months, 9 months, the market is better, and we will sit there and wish we had waited. And so that's something to consider. The way I think this risk is somewhat mitigated is a lot of CCAs, as you saw, have done multiple deals. So you're sort of hedging yourself to the market. You may want to minimize the size of your first transaction so that you come again in 6 months or 9 months. There's also a risk the market deteriorates. So there's both sides of the coin. Third issue is staff time. This will take a lot of my time, my team's time, your time, because we're going to want to update you. And that's a fact. The benefit here, and Mike can attest to this, and I've heard this from Garth Salisbury, the CFO at MCE, we are benefiting from those before us. You know, the first transaction took, I'm told, 1.5 to 2 years. Documents are this tall. We are now leveraging that. It's a lot of dupe and revise. I'm sure there's some specifics of the transaction, but I'm told we are definitely sort of benefiting from the work they did in the past. We'll also benefit from Mike's support. It's not free, but comes from he's paid for the bond proceeds, but we will leverage his expertise. And the last thing is, you know, I've tried to push on all the CFOs. I've talked to all the CFOs who've done deals. What am I missing? What's the downside? Anything I should consider? The one thing they've said is post these deals, there is a little bit of increased complexity on the settlement side. So this is in Roy's area, paying for the PPAs. It could take a little more time. You know, we're told that the advisors and banks will set us up so that we know, obviously we know what we're doing, but give us the tools so that it's successful. But it will take a little more effort on our side. Worst case scenario, maybe that requires us to hire another employee. Hopefully the benefits justify that. The other CCAs have told me it's not a full person, so it's maybe not a full person, but it is a little extra resource on Roy. The team, there's a big team here. There are a lot of people getting paid. We're benefiting, but other people are benefiting too. The first party here is the municipal advisor. This is someone who will financially advise us on the structure. They have a fiduciary responsibility to us. We ran an RFP and are recommending to hire PFM. That's Mike's firm. They've worked on 7 of the 11 CCA deals. There's only two advisors. There's another firm that advised on the other 4. Both were very capable, but we felt very comfortable. Mike and his team, we've worked with them in the past on rating agency advisory and some other engagements. There's Counsel, as you can imagine. We will definitely need legal advice. Chapman and Cutler has worked on 10 of the 11 deals. So clearly a subject matter expert, and behooves us to leverage their experience. And we are also recommending engaging them. There's the conduit issuer that I mentioned, CCCFA. And the last party, which is to be selected, is, it's technically called a prepaid supplier, but this is really the investment bank who is going to help us sell these bonds and potentially provide the funding on the other end. Morgan Stanley and Goldman, as you saw on that deal sheet, have done all the deals in California. RBC is very hungry to get in. They've done a lot of gas prepaid and have a very reputable team, and we will consider all 3. One of the first steps we'll do once, hopefully we get approval today, with Mike's help, is to launch an RFP and invite these 3 firms to bid on the transaction. There's also a
Can I also just mention there, in keeping with our DEI policy, there are some very reputable BIPOC owned firms that we reached out to talk to just see if they would be interested. Many of whom do municipal bond finance for schools. And they were grateful that we called and talked to them, but they declined that this is an area that's not their expertise. So I just wanna make sure everyone understands we thought about this more than just 3 white men firms. You're welcome.
There's a custodian and a trustee. A lot of money goes in and they handle it. There's rating agencies. Moody's has been the rating agency that's rated all these bonds. We don't need 2. And then importantly, the bottom right, there is bond and tax counsel. Oric has worked on, I think, maybe all but one of the CCA deals. And we are recommending engaging them. They're actually technically engaged by CCCFA, but obviously will work with us on this transaction. So that's the team. Timeline, this is very, very, very high level. Hopefully you can appreciate there's a lot of work beneath here, some of which I'm not even fully aware of. But at the top, we have been obviously doing the RFP and talking to counsel, and that's where we are at the end of April, suggesting the engagement of Chapman and Cutler, Oric Harrington, and Mike's firm, PFM. After this meeting, assuming the board approves, we will then launch the RFP for the prepaid supplier, the investment bank. After that, sometime over the summer, maybe early fall, exact date to be determined, we'll join CCCFA. Again, we want to wait as long as possible because that is a sunk cost. We'll work on the deal, all the documents. Importantly, I put in here a red box. It's not the exact date, but the point I'm making here is we are not asking for approval to do this deal today. We're just asking for approval to move the ball forward, so to speak, engage counsel, engage advisors, and continue the preparation. We will come back to this board seeking approval to do the deal, seeking approval to enter into numerous documents, parameters of a deal, and so that will come much later. In the meantime, we'll continue to update, of course, the executive committee and the audit and finance committee, and maybe even come back to this board as appropriate. I don't want to bore you guys all with complex finance. And hopefully, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to do a deal this calendar year unless the market turns. We are going to have to monitor the markets. We want to get ready and pounce when the markets are open, which they are today.
Great. Do we have any questions? If we don't, it's okay, because we have in many, many iterations seen some of this. Yes, please, Murray.
Thank you for the presentation. It gets better every time you do it.
3 times.
And it really improved amazingly from the first time to the second. The third time, you can pretty hear. It's but in all seriousness, you mentioned that the bond fees can pay for all the consultants. Can it also pay for the amount of time that our staff pays? And are we tracking that?
Yes, I'm told, Mike can comment on this, but I believe MCE allocated or charged some of staff's time to, it's a little bit of in one pocket out the other.
Right.
But charge some of the staff's time to the deal. Is that true? I believe that's right, Mike?
Correct. You can explore that. Yes.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
through the chair, actually, I appreciate Director Medina's question because it reminded me to ask just a clarifying question from your presentation. Because I think in the admin report, I got the sense that with regard to sunk costs, you mentioned joining CCCFA for 50,000. I think there was something else that might cost about 20,000. But did I hear you mention that one of the someone we needed to pay in addition could be another up to 200,000 once we got into the deal?
Rating agencies, so that's some costs. It still comes out of the bond proceeds if we do a deal, so we never have to write a check if we do a deal. I was just saying, if for some reason the deal falls apart, the markets turn, what would be our worst case scenario? They still want to get paid. So that would be a fee you would have to pay, their one-time CCCFA fee. There is, you mentioned, an ongoing CCCFA fee to cover their costs of $20,000. If we joined and decided we didn't want to do, we could drop out and we wouldn't have to pay that fee going on. But assuming we move forward with the transaction, that is an ongoing fee.
Thank you, Director Lori. Is anyone else? Otherwise, I'll take public comment. We can reopen it back up. So are there any members of the public who have questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Does anyone else have questions, or would anyone, I think I want to make clear here today what we're doing. So we have there are really 3 things we're working on here. Approval to join the California Community Choice Finance Authority, which, as you saw on the chart, would occur later in the summer. The engagement of a financial advisor, which would be paid for out of the proceeds of the bond issuance, and prepay council, that, what that doesn't mean is we're not prepaying any money to council. The council is the prepay council. The terrible name. It's a terrible name.
I did ask, it's funny, I was asking banks, because I've been so confused, like, we're not prepaying for anything, no one's getting
Yeah.
prepaid. And they were like, we tried to change the name and. it's
I
been-
didn't really take. So just for clarification, this would be the legal firm that would help us with the prepay transaction. Their fees would be part of, and you know, the proceeds. So obviously we pay fees, they diminish the savings that we get on the issuance, but they are not paid out of our pocket. So that is to be clear, those are the three things that are being asked for. I think we can take them all in a single motion, can we? Okay. And then the sort of estimate on the first roll of something like this, and the suggestion being, if we do adopt this as a ongoing program, there would be a dollar cost averaging over time. So we would not issue everything at once, but we would, try to, you all know how the stock market and interest rates go, you don't want to put all of your eggs in the single basket, right? So we would be unwilling, but at 3.5 million, it would be 3.5 million a year, which of course, over the course of 7 or 8 years, or 10 years is a significant amount of money that we could save on behalf of our ratepayers, which I think is the critical reason why we do it. Yes.
I'll move the item.
Pardon?
I'll move the item.
You'll move the aye. Thank you. Supervisor Mueller, Director Mueller,
Second.
and we have Director Medina with a second. May we have a roll call vote?
Yes.
San Mateo County. Atherton,
Yes.
Belford. Prepay,
Okay, thank you, Justin. Justin,
Prepay,
yes.
Tacoma, Daly City, East Palo Alto, Foster City.
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Aye.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside.
Yes.
Again, motion passes.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item number 14. This is, Justin's gonna go ahead and give us, it's a 5-minute presentation. This is something we just need to do in order to manage Caltrain electrification. Please take the show.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Justin Pine again, Digital Accounts Manager here at Peninsula Clean Energy. Oh, I need the clicker.
Fine, make you make it.
Yeah. I have 4 short and sweet slides, maybe. Sean, I'm guessing just there.
Yeah, or if it doesn't work, those guys can. Brianna, will you?
Say the first one. I think I'm gonna do that.
That's
There's only a few slides, so we could
I
even.
know, right? There you
Yeah,
go.
okay, thank you. So we're gonna go over the background, why we're here tonight, go over the low carbon fuel standard program, the zero CI green tariff that we're asking you to approve tonight, and then our staff recommendation. Okay, great. So I was here in January, and among other things, I provided an update that we've been working with Caltrain in preparation for their electrification of their passenger service beginning this September. As part of that work, we've been helping them forecast their estimated fuel costs, and also looking for ways to identify ways for them to lower those fuel costs. So as you can see here, Caltrain is actually anticipating or forecasting to increase their fuel costs when they move from diesel to electrification from $15 million annually to $30 million annually in fiscal year 26 once they fully electrified. So that will be about 10 to 15% of Caltrain's annual budget. So PCE's portion of that, fuel cost, electricity costs, or PCE's revenue will be over $7 million annually from Caltrain's electrification. Also, Samtrans has been in pursuit of their innovative clean transit requirements, which requires them to have their electric fleet or zero emissions fleet by 2040. So to date, they have purchased 37 battery electric buses and 10 fuel cell electric buses. They are this year and at the beginning of next year looking at what they are going to do with the rest of the fleet, which is another 108 buses that need to be replaced. So the Low Carbon Fuel Standard Program is a program administered by the California Air Resources Board and functions similarly to the California Cap and Trade Program. What it does is it regulates transportation fuel specifically, and it establishes a declining carbon intensity, I might say CI, each year for transportation fuels. Each fuel type is assigned a carbon intensity, and fuels that have a lower carbon intensity than the target CI generate credits, while fuels that have a higher carbon intensity than the target generate a deficit. At the end of each year, a fuel reporting entity that generates a deficit must purchase credits from entities that generated credits to make sure they hit their target CI. So essentially it allows public transit agencies, in this case, to generate credits that they can then sell to offset their cost of electrification. So fuel reporting entities like Caltrain and Samtrans can either take the default California grid carbon intensity compared to the target carbon intensity, which is calculated each year, or it can subscribe to an alternate fuel pathway, which is what we're talking about tonight. I'm actually going to skip to the last bullet here. So a zero CI pathway or zero carbon intensity pathway is a product that's made up of only zero CI renewable energy or resources and cannot include large hydro and also cannot include geothermal. So somewhere in the middle between default grid and zero CI is a low carbon intensity product. We are not recommending a low CI product because it's significantly more administratively burdensome to verify. So basically, if you have a low CI, not a full zero CI, each generation resource that's a part of that product needs to be independently third-party certified. They have to calculate the carbon intensity by each generator, which then calculates your carbon intensity. And of course, you would get less incremental advantage than to the zero CI carbon intensity product. One more thing on the zero carbon intensity product. This provides about 35% more value than the default grid carbon intensity in terms of revenue or credits generated from the program. For Caltrain, as an example, that's an additional $1.5 million in credits revenue generated. All right, so last slide with content. So we've talked about what the zero CI pathway looks like. It must be RPS qualifying PCC1, excluding biomass, biomethane, and importantly, geothermal. This looks a lot like our Eco 100 customer, but I have to clarify that we cannot just siphon off part of the Eco 100 product as it is and still meet this LCFS product. We have to have a separate tariff, which is why we're here tonight. That's mainly because of the power resource disclosure, if I'm getting that right, Sarah, that is a requirement that we can't be serving two products under one, including considering it one product, the Eco 100 product. It has to be a separate product. In terms of administration, it's actually pretty straightforward. If we get approval tonight, we would bring this tariff to CARB, stand up the product, ask for approval. It's a pretty quick, a zero CI product is a pretty quick approval. And then in terms of administration of the product, or maintaining the product, we would be working with the fuel reporting entity, be it Caltrain, Samtrans, or otherwise, to basically export the Regis, I'm gonna call it an Excel file, whatever it comes out with PDF probably, that says, yes, we retired these RECs on behalf of Caltrain for the LCFS product in the appropriate LCFS sub-account. So with that, we're asking for your approval of the new zero CI low carbon fuel standard green tariff to support the electrification of public transit in the Peninsula Clean Energy Service area. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very, very much, Justin. Okay, are
5
there
minutes.
any questions? Record time. Yes, we have one. Director Schneider.
Thank you, Chair. Curious, with this contract with Caltrain and electrification, have we asked them to put solar panels on their parking lots? to avoid or reduce the load? Or inversely, have we offered them the public purchasing agreement that thankfully Millbrae has benefited from?
Yeah, so I could address it in part and maybe I will jump in, but so I just want to clarify, this is a tariff. So this is not a direct contract with Caltrain. It's a tariff open to public transit agencies. That said, we of course are open to working with Caltrain in, you know, adding solar, battery, whatever it be in the future. You know, I think that's an opportunity, but you know, obviously the train's load is significant and also intermittent.
Got it. Thank you. Happy to support.
Thank you.
Director DeGolia. You have a question? I saw his hand raised. No?
Yeah, I did have a question. I lowered my hand because Justin just answered the key thing, which was whether this tariff was going to be available only to Caltrain or to others, and it just said it would be others. So I did have another question that's kind of somewhat irrelevant, but I'll ask it anyway. You said that $7 million of the Caltrain projected $15 to $30 million cost would cover the estimated cost of electricity to PCE. Where is the other $23 million going?
Yeah, a great question. So, you know, you could probably more than double that for PG&E side of the bill in our service territory. And then their other traction power station is at Diridon Station in San Jose. So they have 2 traction power stations, one being in South San Francisco, one being in San Jose. So double our cost for a general PG&E bill for our side, and then double that again for the San Jose station.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Director Lorraine?
Yeah, is it fair to say that we are essentially agreeing to sell transit agencies something very similar to Eco 100 Energy, but at the Eco Plus rate?
Yeah, so these are going to be, it's going to be very similar to a Eco 100 product. It's going to have 100% wind and solar. So yeah, similar to that.
Okay.
At the Eco Plus rate.
Thank
you. Yes, Director Mueller.
That's interesting. I'm on the finance committee at Caltrain, and we hadn't ruled out nuclear or any other. So it's interesting. Okay. I guess I'm just speaking out loud. I'm sorry. It's not
Great. Any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and open up to any members of the public that might have a question or a comment. None? Okay, we're going to go close public comment. If there are no other questions, we could entertain a motion. Yes, so, Director Medina and Director Coleman makes the second to approve a new zero CI low carbon fuel standard green tariff to support the electrification of public transit in the PCE energy service territory. All right, roll call vote.
San Mateo County.
I serve on both boards.
Yes.
Yes.
Well done.
San Mateo. Okay. Appleton.
Yes.
Thank you. Belmont. Brisbane.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Colmont. Daly City. East Palo Alto. Foster City.
Yes.
Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Hillsborough.
Yes.
Los Angeles.
Yes.
Thank you. Menlo Park.
Yes.
Millbrae.
Yes.
Pacifica.
Yes.
Portola Valley.
Yes.
Redwood City.
Yes.
San Bruno.
Yes.
San Carlos. San Mateo.
Yes.
South San Francisco.
Yes.
And Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right. That is our last item of business. Other than if there are any committee reports or member reports, anyone has any other report outs? As a late hour of the evening, don't dare put your hand up. Thank you very much, everyone, for a wonderful meeting. I really appreciate it. Meeting's adjourned, and we'll see everyone in May.
I think